Next story. Exploring the surprising growth of coastal sink compared to open ocean, coastal carbon sink outpaces open ocean in carbon uptake. In a recent study published in Nature Climate Change, Moritz Mathis and colleagues have found that the ocean's carbon sink has been strengthening faster in coastal waters than in the open ocean due to human-driven changes in ocean circulation and reduced sea ice cover, leading to enhanced biological activity. The global ocean carbon sink has been absorbing about 30% of the carbon emitted by human activities, regulating atmospheric CO2 levels and the Earth's climate. However, the traditional view of the ocean carbon sink as a passive solubility-driven process breaks down in the coastal ocean. Coastal oceans are a hub of carbon exchange, and they are very diverse and complex environments, encompassing vast shallow margins and narrow shelves, and coastlines that can be punctuated by deep fjords or dense networks of mangroves, as well as systems influenced by the upwelling of deep waters, intense boundary currents, or large riverine plumes. Mathis and colleagues used a global ocean model with refined spatial resolution in coastal areas and a series of 20th-century simulations isolating the influence of human factors, in particular the rise in atmospheric CO2, eutrophication, and changes in sea ice, circulation, and biology. They found that the CO2 uptake per unit area has increased at a rate about one-third faster in coastal ocean waters than in the open ocean since 1900. They attribute 60% of this strengthening to biological changes, while the rise in atmospheric CO2 controls the remaining 40%. The disproportionate contribution of biology in the coastal ocean relative to the open ocean arises from two factors in their model. First, the stimulation of marine photosynthesis and biological carbon drawdown in response to enhanced nutrient delivery by rivers, enhanced nutrient upwelling from the deep ocean due to changes in coastal winds and reduced sea ice cover. Second, the amplification of this biological drawdown as the ocean buffer capacity goes down and the air-sea CO2 flux becomes more sensitive to changes in carbon content. However, several sources of uncertainty need to be considered when interpreting the biological boost simulated by the model of Mathis and co-authors. The intensification of winds and upwelling that support a large fraction of the additional biological drawdown identified is highly uncertain. Another key factor is the fate of this biologically fixed carbon, that is, whether it is buried in sediments, exported to the open ocean and isolated from the atmosphere, or in contrast respired rapidly and released back to the atmosphere in shallow coastal waters. Coastal oceans absorb CO2 but are hotspots of N2O and CH4 emissions, two highly potent greenhouse gases. Observations suggest that N2O and CH4 emissions have offset approximately 60% of the effect of coastal CO2 uptake in the atmospheric radiative balance, that is, warming avoided, over the past 2 decades. Increases in coastal biological productivity would yield a higher flux of organic matter to the deep ocean, higher respiration and lower oxygen concentrations, all potentially promoting N2O and CH4 production in coastal waters. Thus, if coastal CO2 uptake has indeed increased due to biological activity in the 20th century, much of the effect of this CO2 uptake on the atmospheric radiative balance might have been offset by enhanced N2O and CH4 emissions, emphasizing the need to consider the 3 greenhouse gases when evaluating the influence of coastal waters on climate. The study by Mathis and colleagues provides a solid argument in support of a biologically strengthened coastal ocean sink that is at odds with the traditional view of a passive ocean sink controlled by the rise in atmospheric CO2. Efforts to measure and evaluate changes in biological productivity, carbon chemistry, wind, and sea ice will be key to determine if this biological boost of the coastal ocean carbon sink occurs in nature. Source: Less Than Nature Greater Than. Next story. Empowering spinal cord injury patients and caregivers through high-intensity functional training. Next story. High-intensity functional training for people with spinal cord injury and their care partners, a feasibility study. A new study has found that high-intensity functional training, HIFT, could be a feasible and potentially beneficial exercise option for people with spinal cord injuries, PSCI, and their care partners, CPs. The study, which took place at a community fitness center in a medically underserved area in the United States, found that PSCI and CPs who participated in a 25-week HIFT program experienced improvements in physical and psychosocial health. The study, which was published in the journal NPJ Digital Medicine, recruited 14 PSCI and 6 CPs. The PSCI had a median age of 60 and were predominantly older white males who used manual or power wheelchairs for mobility. The CPs were mostly female spouses of PSCI. Participants lived in socio-economically disadvantaged areas of the U.S. The HIFT program consisted of up to 49 sessions over 25 weeks, with sessions lasting 60 to 75 minutes. The program was adapted to the abilities of the participants and included a variety of functional movements performed at a high intensity. Feasibility measures, such as recruitment, retention, attendance, safety, and fidelity, exercise intensity, were assessed. Physical measures, such as cardiovascular endurance, anaerobic power, and muscular strength, were also assessed, as well as psychosocial measures, such as perceived social support for exercise, exercise self-efficacy, and health-related quality of life. The study found that PSCI and CPs had high attendance rates, with an average of 73% and 61% attendance, respectively. The median session RPE was 5 for all participants, 6 for PSCI, and 5 for CPs, indicating that the exercise intensity met the predefined criteria for high intensity. One adverse event occurred during the program, but it did not impact exercise participation. In terms of physical and psychosocial outcomes, PSCI observed large effect sizes for cardiovascular endurance, anaerobic power, lower extremity strength, and social support for exercise from friends. CPs observed large, non-statistically significant improvements in cardiovascular endurance, peak power, fast walking speed, lower extremity strength, exercise self-efficacy, social support for exercise from family and friends, and all components of quality of life from the SF-36. The study's lead author, Dr. Sarah A. Rietschel, said, "This is the first study to examine HIFT in PSCI or CPs. Our findings suggest that HIFT can be safely implemented for CPs and PSCI, including those with paraplegia, tetraplegia, and those who are ambulatory. The high attendance levels and perceived benefits of the program, as observed with the GRC scale, indicate that PSCI and CPs found the program enjoyable and worthwhile. The study has several limitations, including a small, predominantly white male sample of PSCI, a lack of a control group, and assessments performed by unmasked assessors. However, the study provides promising findings for the feasibility and potential benefits of HIFT for PSCI and CPs. The study's authors conclude, the present study found that 49 sessions of HIFT across 25 weeks is feasible for PSCI and CPs, and potentially leads to improvements in physical and psychosocial health for both groups. HIFT, especially CrossFit, is widely available and may be a viable exercise option for PSCI in other communities. Subsequent studies should examine HIFT and other forms of exercise such as HIIT and compare factors such as attendance rates, health outcomes, cost-effectiveness and sustainability. Source: Less Than Nature Greater Than Next Story. Empowering Communities for Safe Water Access, a Collaborative Approach, Next Story. Achieving Safe Water Access for All, the Power of Community-Led Approaches. Water scarcity and inaccessibility affect over 2 billion people worldwide, a staggering figure that highlights the urgent need for effective and sustainable water governance. The challenges surrounding water management are complex and intertwined with those of land and food systems, further exacerbated by the climate crisis. A recent Nature commentary brings together 4 scholars who emphasize the importance of community involvement in water governance to foster a more equitable and sustainable relationship between water and society. Dr. Farhana Sultana, an interdisciplinary human geographer, shares her personal experiences of water insecurity during her childhood in Dhaka, Bangladesh. Her early exposure to the unpredictability of water availability and the devastating consequences of climate-related disasters sparked her dedication to tackling water injustices. Sultana's research underscores the importance of addressing the root causes of environmental harms and social inequities in tandem, with a particular focus on climate justice. Tara McAllister, a marine biologist and freshwater ecologist, brings attention to the dire state of New Zealand's freshwater ecosystems. Despite the country's pristine image, only 10% of wetlands remain, and only half of rivers are suitable for swimming. McAllister advocates for the return of stolen lands and waters to Maori people, who have a deep connection with nature and a stewardship approach to environmental management. Suparana Katyaini, a researcher at the Council on Energy, Environment and Water, highlights the need for better understanding and integration of water, food, and land systems in India. By examining the interlinkages between these systems, Katyayani aims to inform policies and move towards unifying water, food, and land governance. Michael Blackstock, an independent indigenous scholar, promotes a water-centered perspective, or blue ecology, that acknowledges water's spiritual role in nature and our lives. By shifting attitudes towards water and fostering a sense of gratitude and restrained consumption, Blackstock believes that future generations will survive with dignity. The collective voices of these scholars emphasize the importance of community-led approaches, collaboration, and partnerships in achieving safe water access for all. By involving indigenous and local communities in water governance and climate planning, a just and sustainable future can be realized. Source: Less Than Nature Greater Than Next Story. Pioneering pig kidney transplant, a breakthrough for medical advancement. In a groundbreaking medical procedure, a team of surgeons in Boston, Massachusetts, has successfully transplanted a pig kidney into a living human for the first time. The recipient, a 62-year-old man named Richard Slayman, is recovering well after the surgery, which took place on March 16. The kidney was taken from a miniature pig that had undergone extensive genomic editing to prevent rejection of the donated organ and reduce the risk of infection. The operation marks a significant milestone in the field of xenotransplantation, the use of animal organs in human recipients. The successful transplant has raised hopes that clinical trials for xenotransplanted organs could begin soon, potentially bringing a new source of life-saving organs for the thousands of people waiting for a kidney transplant. The pig kidney was taken from an animal that had undergone CRISPR-Cas9 genome editing by scientists at Agenesis, a biotech firm in Cambridge, Massachusetts. The company is in discussions with the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, about planning clinical trials for its programs for transplanted pig kidneys, livers, and pediatric hearts. The kidney was modified to remove 3 genes that contribute to the production of a protein on the surface of pig cells, which the human immune system attacks as a foreign invader. 7 genes were added to help prevent organ rejection. Additionally, 59 genetic changes were made to inactivate viruses embedded in the pig genome, addressing the risk that the viruses could become active once in the human body. The surgery took 4 hours, and the kidney immediately began to function once blood flow was restored. Slayman's creatinine level, a measure of kidney health, dropped from 10 mg per deciliter prior to the transplant to 2.4 by the 4th day. He could be released from the hospital as early as tomorrow. The successful transplant has brought renewed hope to the field of xenotransplantation, which has long been seen as a potential solution to the shortage of human organs available for transplant. In the United States alone, there are nearly 90,000 people waiting for a kidney transplant, and more than 3,000 people die every year while still waiting. This is great news for the field, said Mohammed Mohiuddin, a surgeon and researcher at the University of Maryland School of Medicine in Baltimore, who led the first pig heart transplant in a living person. Clinical trials would produce much-needed rigorous data about the safety and efficacy of xenotransplantation. The successful transplant has also raised questions about the potential risks of xenotransplantation, including the risk of transmitting viruses or other pathogens from animals to humans. Researchers are monitoring Slayman closely for any signs of infection, and have collected and frozen blood samples from him, his family members, and his surgeons. Despite these concerns, the successful transplant has been hailed as a major breakthrough in the field of transplantation. "It's just amazing," said Chin, a molecular biologist at Agenesis. "There was always a saying that xenotransplantation is around the corner, and will always be. Well, now we have someone among us that carries a porcine kidney." Source: Less Than Nature Greater Than Next Story. Rooted in healing, residents crafting a narrative medicine curriculum. Next story. Pediatric residents lead the way in narrative medicine curriculum. A group of pediatrics residents have taken the lead in designing and implementing a narrative medicine, nanometer, curriculum to enhance their clinical training and improve their relationships with colleagues and patients. The curriculum, facilitated by a resident with a master's degree in nanometer, was found to be feasible and effective in promoting self-reflection, inclusivity, and humanistic care. The study, published in the journal Nature Medicine, highlights the potential of peer-led nanometer workshops to address the challenges and stress faced by healthcare professionals, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic. The curriculum was designed to create opportunities for reflection, group cohesion, and development of skills of close listening amongst those engaged in delivering healthcare. The nanometer curriculum consisted of 7 workshops for residents of all training years, led by residents who were trained in nanometer facilitation. The workshops followed the methodology developed by the nanometer program at Columbia University, with each 1H workshop consisting of 3 activities: 30 minutes of close reading or observation of a creative work, 5 minutes of writing to a prompt, and 15 minutes of sharing written responses in dyads and with the whole group. The curriculum was dynamically adapted to suit residents' needs, with work centering on mortality, illness, relationships, medical training, and current events. The study conducted semi-structured interviews with 15 residents who had attended at least 2 workshops. The interviews explored how the nanometer workshops impacted residents' experiences inside and outside the hospital, their relationships with patients, colleagues, and loved ones, as well as the experience of facilitation by co-residents. The analysis of the interviews revealed 3 themes: reflection on personal and professional identity, connection to others and community building, and reconceptualization of medical practice. Participants shared that they experienced greater solidarity, professional fulfillment, appreciation for multiple facets of their identities, recognition of holding space for vulnerability, and advocacy for marginalized populations. The study highlights the importance of peer teaching and support in medical education. Physicians often identify peers as the most acceptable sources of support, and resident wellness benefits from peer support interventions. Trainees value learning from peers due to their social and cognitive congruence, creating a climate of safety and comfort in which learners can be more vulnerable with each other. The nanometer curriculum by Residents for Residents is a promising application of peer-led education to promote reflection, close listening, and solidarity. The study demonstrates that such a curriculum may be of particular benefit to pediatricians and pediatricians in training, who attend to children's stories across the span of development and within the context of their families and communities. The nanometer curriculum is a beacon of hope for healthcare professionals seeking to regain fulfillment in their work and address relevant healthcare barriers and biases. The study provides a model for nanometer to be adapted in a variety of educational and clinical settings that facilitates a culture shift towards a more humanistic and inclusive approach to healthcare. URL: Less than nature, greater than next story. Unlocking the Universe, Observatory to explore Big Bang's afterglow. Get ready for the best view ever of the cosmic microwave background, CMB, with the Simons Observatory, set to begin observations in the Atacama Desert of Chile. This new observatory, funded by the Simons Foundation, will offer a tenfold increase in sensitivity compared to the Planck space probe, allowing researchers to study the CMB's temperature variations and polarization in unprecedented detail. The Simons Observatory is an array of 4 telescopes, including the 6-meter Large Aperture Telescope, LAT, and 3 0.4-meter Small Aperture Telescopes, SATs. The LAT will map 40% of the sky, while the SATs will focus on a smaller patch to study large-scale swirls in the polarization field of the CMB. These swirls, known as B-mode patterns, could provide the first incontrovertible evidence for cosmic inflation and the elusive gravitational waves from the Big Bang. The observatory's primary goal is to find signs of inflation, but it will also contribute to other areas of research. The LAT data will help create 3D maps of galaxy clusters, determine the mass of neutrinos, and track asteroids and active black holes. The Simons Observatory will have 2 runs, each lasting about 4 years, with a planned $53 million upgrade in between. The Simons Observatory is an essential step towards the even more ambitious CMBS-4 project, planned for the mid-2030s, which aims to improve sensitivity to the inflationary signal by another factor of 6. The Simons Observatory's hardware could potentially be reused as part of the CMBS-4 collaboration. The quest for direct detection of gravitational waves from the Big Bang has been ongoing since the BICEP-2 experiment's bold claim in 2014, which was later retracted due to dust interference. The Simons Observatory offers a new opportunity to detect these primordial signals, taking us back to 13.8 billion years ago, with energy densities 15 orders of magnitude larger than anything we can create in the lab. The Simons Observatory is set to revolutionize our understanding of the early universe, gravitational waves, and cosmic inflation. With its high-resolution map of the CMB, researchers will be able to visualize the universe at an early age and study how its primordial radiation was affected during its 13.8 billion year journey to Earth. Source: Less Than Nature Greater Than. Next story. Unlocking the Youthful Potential of Motherhood: How Giving Birth Reverses Your Biological Age. Next story. Pregnancy's Surprising Reversal of Biological Age. A new study has discovered that pregnancy causes a woman's biological age to increase, but giving birth reverses this effect, returning her DNA markers to a more youthful state. This fascinating discovery, published in Cell Metabolism, has shed light on the remarkable plasticity of the human body and the potential impact of pregnancy on biological age. The study, led by perinatal health specialist Kieran O'Donnell at Yale University, analyzed the distribution of certain chemical markers on DNA called methyl groups. These methyl groups, which are added to DNA in a process called methylation, are part of the epigenome and can be used to estimate a person's biological age. The researchers found that pregnancy led to changes in the distribution of methyl groups, similar to those seen in older people. However, several months after giving birth, the chemical patterns reverted to an earlier state. This trend was less noticeable in new birth parents with obesity, highlighting the impact of pre-pregnancy weight on the body's ability to bounce back. The study also found that people who breastfed exclusively experienced a greater reduction in biological age than those who used formula or a mix of formula and breast milk. Some participants' biological ages were a few years younger postpartum than in early pregnancy, suggesting a rejuvenation effect. While the study did not measure the biological age of participants before pregnancy, the data are suggestive, and O'Donnell would like to follow up with the participants in the future. However, interpreting the findings is tricky, and some researchers caution that pregnancy should not be conceptualized as a biological problem. Instead, methylation might underlie some of the sweeping changes that the body must undergo to support a growing fetus, such as altered gene expression. Nonetheless, the study has opened up new areas for aging research and highlighted the potential for new terms and terminology to be developed. While the benefits of breastfeeding are many, its absence is not a dangerous predicament. This exciting new research has shown that pregnancy can have a significant impact on a woman's biological age, but giving birth can reverse this effect, returning her DNA markers to a more youthful state. While more research is needed, this study has shed light on the remarkable plasticity of the human body and the potential impact of pregnancy on biological age. Source: Less Than Nature Greater Than.